Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece, episodes 344, 345, and 346. We got a 3B today, everybody. These episodes are A Bunch of Animals, Perona's Wonder Garden, The Vanishing Straw Hat Crew, a mysterious swordsman appears, and Chivalry Remains, the traitorous zombie protects Nami. In these amazing episodes, we have all these zombie animals that turn up. We have Zorro and Sanji somehow being turned into zombies. We find out Robin can fucking fly. Everything is on the table. Welcome to One Piece. Wait, oh my god. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Natasha. Sorry about that. Thank you very much to the One Piece crew for commissioning this episode. Appreciate y'all very much. We got some folks in the chat today. Hi, guys. These episodes, y'all, were so much fun. I am really loving these, later arcs of this show. And I don't want to make any pronouncements about how the show just keeps getting better and better, because that's just an unrealistic expectation. It's probably got some low points coming, and that's just part of a thing that runs for fucking ever. But as of right now, I keep being pleasantly surprised, because I think that we have sort of seen as wild as shit's gonna get, and then it just does whatever it does, and I'm left going, right, this show's crazy. I keep forgetting that part. So, I, first of all, again, have to mention the amazing titles. These are just straight out of a 1920s, newspaper, where they have, the Penny Dreadful that's sold by itself, but there's also the columns in sort of trashy newspapers that would run really over the top stories with men twirling their mustachios as they tied ladies to the train tracks, and that is what these titles are giving, and I am fucking into it. So the Bunch of Animals episode, I was a little bit sad, you guys, because these animals, I was hoping, were all going to kind of be like, oh, we got made into zombies and we don't like that. So yeah, we're on your side. And that is super not what's going on. All of these animals seem to be somehow under the total control of, I guess, Dr. Hawkback? But I don't know that for sure. I'm realizing that, Perona, it's her garden of animals. So I guess she's controlling them? But it's just we don't really, there's no confirmation of that, I'll just say. It's said in the title, which I guess you could take as confirmation. But she isn't in these episodes that much at all. She's in the very beginning of the first of the three. I think that's the only appearance we get from her. I could be off on that, but if that's all I remember of her being, I feel like that kind of speaks for itself. So, oh God, there are so many people in the chat. Hi, guys. What? Brian says right now is a low point in a lot of people's eyes, so it's awesome you're enjoying it. What? Brian, send those people to me. Who is calling this a low point? I won't say the low point, a low point. For me, the low point is still fucking what's his face from, unfortunately, the arc where we meet Sanji. No offense, Sanji. I can't believe people are considering this a low point. What in the hell is the matter with people? Ugh. You know, there are times where everybody agrees, and those are beautiful times. For example, when Owen and I watched, there was some sort of like episode where in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the whole thing takes place in a canyon, and it's like two groups against one another, and it is the most tedious, boring shit. And we went and like found out about it afterwards, and it turned out to be universally seen as the number one worst episode of the whole show. And we felt so validated, you know, just like, okay, good. We all agree this was not up to the usual standard. And then there's moments like this, and I don't know what metric people are using. You know what I have to say? And I was talking about this with Owen the other day. People have a tendency to mistake arcs or scenes where something major is revealed, or there's like a huge turning point, and say those are the quote best episodes. And the truth is, you just like that twist, or you just like that change in somebody's story. That doesn't mean the episode that it took place in is a good episode. Those aren't the same thing. So I have this a lot with like different TV shows that I have finished, and I'll be in fandoms where we're talking about it. And I realize that everybody's like, oh, I love when such and such. And I'm like, I like that beat of the plot. But that episode where that happened is wall to wall bummer. And I can't understand how anybody says it's their like favorite episode of the show. So anyway, I feel like sometimes people get so focused on like plot at the expense of an actually well-constructed story, which is not to say those are mutually exclusive, but a lot of times with something that runs for a really long time, like this show, that does tend to happen because the plots are so stretched out and the arcs are so long. I don't know. I'm getting off topic here, but I just find this fascinating because you guys, I don't know if I've gone on this tangent on this show, but I've gone on this tangent for sure. I think in the Mage Errant series and maybe in the Dandelion Dynasty series about my feelings regarding the Star Wars like latest trilogy. And how Last Jedi is by far the best of all the Star Wars movies. And the fact that anybody says it's the worst is laughable garbage. And the arguments that I get in with people about this often cite things that make no sense. So sometimes I just have to accept people are going to be wrong about things. I was going to say, let's accept that we have different opinions. No, I can't do it. I'm just going to say I will accept that sometimes people are going to be wrong. They just are. So, Florian says, I said I love this arc, but lots of people don't like it. I forgot you said that. You did. You kind of warned me. You warned me. I forgot. I'm sorry. Kratos says, it's true. People think it meanders a little too much, and the Sanji, Nami, Absalom moment is a low of the series for some. That is true. 100%. But we're going to talk about that. And then Brian says, I myself don't really care much for Thriller Bark. It has some great moments, but definitely near the bottom for me. You know, honestly, though, if this is kind of near the bottom for people, I feel like that's a great sign since I'm having such a good time. So we'll see. But, okay, so I wanted to talk right out of the gate about Absalom and what is going on with this maniac. So, you know, I stand by absolutely every fucking thing that I said about the episode where Nami is assaulted in the shower and it's like super sexualized and just male gazy as fucking very gross. I will not budge on that. However, I really have to say I appreciate the unexpected turning of the corner here where all of a sudden we have a creature that is low-key assaulting Absalom also. So he is gross and pervy, but he is getting what he dished out. And I did not see that coming, and I am here for it. I really appreciate, too, that the show managed to sidestep something that I have seen in this show before, but also it's just a trope everywhere. The trope of, oh, she's fat and ugly, and I think the idea of, like, having sex with her or being a partner of hers is literally revolting. They managed to make this inoffensive by having it be, one, a non-human creature, a warthog, and two, an undead creature, a corpse of a warthog. So I was really concerned when you first, like, see her, there's a camera angle, and I was starting to go, oh man, are we going to have, like, oh, here's the fat girl. And, like, it certainly tap dances on those tropes, but it's not that. And for that, I remain thankful. And it's just worth it to see Absalom get subjected to the same grossness that Nami is subjected to. And I like the fact that it's also a creature who can physically overpower him. Like, she is out of control. And I just really, her fucking whole thing is so ridiculous. She's like the design of her is like, have you guys heard of the movie Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey? It's a really low budget slasher movie that, because Winnie the Pooh is in the public domain, somebody came up with the bright idea of, like, what if we did a dark, gritty Winnie the Pooh? And by gritty, I mean, like, the reviews of this movie are so bad because it's nothing but, like, a torture fest, basically, and just really grim and unfun, and it takes itself extremely seriously. So I don't recommend the movie based on the reviews that I have read, but there are some liberties taken with the design of Piglet and Winnie the Pooh in that movie to make them grotesque and scary. And I can't remember the name of the warthog. Help me out, guys. But she is like if they did that to Miss Piggy. If they had, like, a really grim, dark slasher version of the Muppets, this is what I feel like Miss Piggy would be like. So I don't know how everyone else feels. I personally have been a massive fan of Miss Piggy my whole life, unsurprisingly. I mean, it's really funny because it took a while for my personality to really develop and my humor to come out, but there were really signs along the way. And the fact that I loved Miss Piggy in the Muppets, like, the most, and I loved Lucy from Peanuts the most, really says a lot. I know that Miss Piggy can be seen as a bit of, like, a punchline, but honestly, she's a fucking icon and I love her forever. So it's a beautiful combo for me of a comeuppance for Absalom, because I really hate this character, and also getting to see somebody who really resembles an icon for me be the one to, like, wreak this out. And I'm into it. So, there's so much. She's in a wedding dress, you guys. Like, the whole thing. Why is why is she so in love with him? Who knows? It doesn't matter. That's not even the point. It's not even that she's in love with him, because as we see, she doesn't hear a word he says. Like, it's not about him, but that still works for me. I love too, as he is, like, sending all of these zombie generals out to fight. There is a guy named Killer John or something like. He's the pirate that had, like, the the sword sticking out of his chest, I'm pretty sure. Like the first moment we see him when he turns, the swords are sticking out of him. He's sort of like lounging. I don't know if it was like in a chair or what, but he is drinking wine. It was a real like chef's kiss first impression. But he's out here and he's walking past Absalom, who is like very annoyed because this man is not giving the kind of energy that he wants him to give. He isn't as enthusiastic or as, I would guess, like proactive as Absalom was hoping. So he's releasing these zombie generals and kind of like, yeah, go get them, and trying to hype them up. And the zombie generals are all kind of reacting like they just clocked in for the day. They're not excited. And Absalom seems genuinely a little bit bummed out by that, which I love very much. I have always been a big fan of the trope undead who are sick of your shit. And these guys, they're willing to do the job, you know? They go and they confront the, you know, the Straw Hat fighters. There's a whole thing. And they get hype when it's time to fight. But they're not rushing forward. They're not bloodthirsty. They're just kind of like, man, I did not want to get out of bed this morning, I guess, you know? And honestly, there's something really delightful about the fact that Absalom has technical control over their actions, but he doesn't have any influence over their emotions, you know, or their reactions to things. So yeah, here, Lola, that's her name. Lola, what a good name. I love her so much, you guys. She is awful. The design of her, she's got a big heart-shaped nose, which you just love that. And whenever she makes like a kissy face with her lips make almost a perfect heart. And just, you know, her whole look, like, I have no concept of why she has to be dressed like a bride, why she's obsessed with getting married. I don't know if this is ever explained. If it is, awesome. If it's not, I am 100% fine with it. I'm going to write me some fucking Lola fan fiction. So yeah, we have her like accosting him for quite a while. Very, very predictably, he winds up being like, no, I'm going to marry Nami. Shows Lola the picture of Nami, who of course freaks out and decides that she is going to go after Nami, because if she kills Nami, then she gets to marry Absalom. And as much as I don't want her going after my girl, I do enjoy that Lola's as much of an enemy to Absalom as she is to Nami. So it's sort of a fucking, you know, even though she doesn't see herself that way in the moment, if there's both standing there, Nami and Absalom, it's kind of a 50-50 on who she's going to assault. The assault may manifest in a different way, but nevertheless, that's what it's going to be. So then we go to the remaining 4 initially Straw Hats. We've got remaining at this point Zorro, Luffy, Frankie, and Robin. And they're walking down the hallway as this fucking porker is telling them not... Luffy calls him wall pig in the dub. Oh, you know what? I wanted to mention this, by the way, you guys. So you know how sometimes I'll be like, the sub says this, the dub says that, compare, contrast. Funimation doesn't seem to have an option to watch the Japanese subs with the American dub. So, or English dub. So I get closed captioning, which is the exact same script as the dub, which it's fine, but I do sort of miss being able to like see what is different about the way the translation works versus the... So if you all were sort of liking those moments, apologies, but because Funimation likes to ruin my fun, I won't be able to do that for a little bit until, I guess, Netflix decides that they are going to get the rest of these episodes. So this pig keeps like telling all of them that they need to worry about themselves, not their friends. They're in danger, yada, yada, yada. And as they're walking down this hall, Zorro sees something, stops and looks. He can't like focus on it. Tells them, never mind, it was just my imagination. And then as he turns back and follows his friends, we see a spider drop down from the ceiling. And I realized later on when we see Luffy, who has gotten wrapped up and put in one of these coffins, we see him like basically sailing down what looks almost like a wash line, like, you know, that you would wheel in and out of your window if you lived in the city or something. That probably last episode when I was like, I guess that was Nami and Usopp and Chopper that were in that one. No, they were still being carried by the squirrel guys. So I think that was Sanji that we saw. So that abrupt cut that I assumed was meant to insinuate here's where our friends are now, that's not what it meant at all. And that's why it was so weird and abrupt, was that those were two different events happening. So, you know, just interesting to circle back to that. So let's see. Perona. Okay, here's the moment where she shows up. She's talking to Kumasi, who is the little bear guy. I feel so bad for this bear. All he wants to do, well, I don't know how much want comes into it because their motivations are corrupted by whatever is controlling them. But it seems like Kumasi is just trying to do his best. And she is just so mean to him. And she says that the Risky Brothers, which is apparently the name of those creatures which are called squirrels in the dub. I'm assuming that's what they are in the sub as well. She says they'll be delivering those coffins soon. Pick it up from them and take it straight to our master over at the dance hall. And I'm assuming that is Dr. Hogback. I can't tell you guys, you know how hard it is sometimes with this show to keep names straight. I feel like I do a decent job of it, all things considered. I certainly could be better. But Dr. Hogback, I always forget his name for a moment and then have to imagine a side of pork and go pig, side, no, hog, not the side, the back, and make that connection in order to remember his name. Fucking, why is it easier to remember a side of pork? I don't know. That's just what lodged in my head. So, yeah, this poor Kumasi is just like, yes, I'll do it. And she's yelling at him, don't talk. I told you not to talk. You're so ugly. Ugh. Eventually gets him to just nod. There you go. You're much cuter when you keep that ugly mouth shut. And then he says, take care out there. Why do you care? Kumasi, have some dignity. Gus says, Captain John, we saw that Buggy was searching for a Captain John's treasure in a cave a while ago. Oh, wow. That is a distant memory. Their master is Moria, I think. Thank you, Gus. I fucking completely forgot about that dude because we do not see him in these episodes at all. Appreciate that. So we then go to the Risky Brothers. Now, I'm going to put the Risky Brothers in like a top 10 list of favorite weird side characters. Their design is adorable. Their voices are adorable. The script as written for their little voices is also fucking adorable. I love them so much. They have little vests. One of them has like what looks to be kind of buttons going down his front, which doesn't make any sense because they're not on a garment. I guess they're just sewed to his like skin. But he's got also like a little mask on, and the other one has bandages around his head and his leg. Well, actually they both have it around their leg. But they're just so cute. I just really liked their voices. It sounds like the same, it may not be, but it sounds like the same voice actress that does Chopper's voice, because it's a similar like soprano kind of, sound. But I fell in love with these guys, and I was a little sad that the scene kind of ends with like them running off and we don't really see them again for the rest of this episode or the next two. It's all much bigger, more tough creatures, because these guys, they get put down pretty easily by Chopper in one shot. So they're not going to be at the front of any assault. So yeah, Chopper, like they drop the coffin by accident. It pops open. Chopper comes out, and he has turned into his like big muscular version of himself. And he takes these two down. They get like knocked out for a little while, but they are not dead. And they are like, oh man, I guess we can't like fix this on our own. We're going to need to call in reinforcements. One of them says, aw, turds, which truly, I don't know why, but that was very funny to me. So they run off to go and get their, basically like, you just wait until my big brother hears about this. And they take off. And our friends sort of like forget about that threat or don't take it very seriously because those guys are so small. And they wind up getting surrounded pretty quick. So Nami, Chopper, and Usopp are looking all around trying to figure out where it is they were being taken. And they noticed this like huge building that they hadn't noticed before. Usopp mentions like, that place is huge. How come we didn't see it? And I'm wondering if there's something magical happening, or if it is just supposed to be like, oh, it's so foggy. I don't know. But Nami, she says, I know what this place is. That is a bridge that connects one building to the other. It's kind of a passageway. And Usopp is like, a passage? I mean, this is like a forest. Well, I guess it is kind of like a bedroom. But they must have been taking us to that other building for some reason. It's probably better that we don't know. To which Nami replies, don't be a baby. They were turning us into zombies and you know it. And I really appreciate, you know how much Nami's pragmatism speaks to my soul. That's exactly what was happening. Thank you, Nami, for getting to the point. Come on, let's not dance around this. Oh, God, what could they have wanted with us? You know what they fucking wanted with you. Stop it. So this is when Nami is like, let's think for a second. And it's weird because the beat that we spend here with her going, let's think for a second. They spend longer on this than it warrants. All it is her thinking back to not very long ago when that Jack in the Box said there's no treasure in this room, in such a way that it makes her think that there's no treasure in that room, but there is in another. I accept her interpretation because I can tell this is what the show wants me to think, but I just would like to say for the record, I would never have heard it that way. And I think it's acceptable that Nami is the only one who sort of hears that and is focused on it because of who she is and what her priorities are. But personally, if somebody's like, there's no blank, blank, blank in this room, it sounds to me kind of like, not around here. We don't do that here. It's sort of like a declaration of the overall vibe of the people involved in a place, and it's not about the room itself. Do you get what I'm saying? So anyway, doesn't matter. I keep going back to this memory because they are playing it again, clearly pointing me in a direction. And I have to remind myself, oh, right, Nami heard this in a way that didn't even enter my head at all. So yeah, they want to run away, and she's just like thinking about money, and they can tell, but they don't really seem to like remember the line that's making her think about money. So she doesn't explain that to them. They don't really ask. It's kind of a weird moment once again where it's just reminding us that treasure is a factor, but there's not a conversation about it. And I don't get the impression Usopp or Chopper are really aware Nami is thinking about that in particular. I don't know that they even remember that Jack in the Box saying that because, you know, they were both pretty scared at the time. So finally, Usopp is like, no, we have really got to go. Like, we've got to get out of here. And she says, okay, fine. Well, which way should we run? What should we do? And as they're deciding, these penguins come waddling up. They do a 1, a 2, a 3. We have a blonde penguin. We have a like very stitched up faced penguin with the first penguin is really cute. He's got a little sort of like driving cap, bow tie, one eye that has a stitch through it, blonde hair, very adorable. The second one, less adorable. The stitches look like they're in such a way that he no longer has a beak. He has a regular mouth, which is awful, and a scarf and a top hat, and one of his eyes has a sort of like darkness around it that almost looks like a flower shape or flower petals. The worst one, though, is the last one, who has a dog's face and a bow tie and a red and white checked, I don't even know what to call that hat. It's just a big round looking, I would almost call it like a Rastafarian hat if it were knitted or crocheted or whatever instead of whatever this is. It's a human pair of eyes and a dog's mouth. There's nothing remaining of a penguin in this face. It even has like dog ears. Horrible. I hate this. And he's like, they're introducing themselves as like a penguin duo. And then what is it? They call us the penguin zombie duo. Wait, that's not right. Trio. We're a trio. I'm the new guy. So it turns out, we'll find out later, but I'm going to just talk about it now. This little guy is somehow linked to Sanji's mind, because it's out here doing all this shit, but we do go see that Sanji is still in one piece. You get it? Oh my god. But no, he hasn't been like chopped up or anything, because at first later when like Nami starts to think, have you noticed his fighting style? And she realizes that it resembles Sanji's fight style and the fact that he's like defending her specifically. My heart dropped and I was like, oh my god, am I going to have to like look at its face and figure out which parts of its face are fucking Sanji's features? That's so horrifying. I didn't think that this would be a permanent thing. I figure if he's turned into a zombie and he can be unturned from that, how? Don't ask me, but whatever. But eventually it's clear, like, the eyes don't look like him. And the eyes, there's enough of that part of whoever's face it was taken off of that their eyebrows are there. And we do not have the curly eyebrows. And other than that, there is nothing human about that face. And eventually we do see his body and he seems to be fully intact. So somehow Sanji's mind is linked, and I don't know if it's like it, because, you know, we have this whole thing with their shadows being taken away. I'm wondering if that's the way, like, what you get out of it, that if you take somebody's shadow, you get their abilities, or they're like, it doesn't make sense though, because there are still dudes with full consciousness walking around without shadows. It's not like they are going comatose or anything. I don't know. I don't know how this is happening. And it's not quite that Sanji is fully aware. It's like this penguin has some weird vestiges of Sanji's personalities and motivations, his ability to fight, like instinctual stuff, his desire to protect women, but it doesn't know our friends when it looks at them. Like, he isn't going, oh my God, you guys, he is defending Nami because of his deep desire to protect women that for some reason is still there. But he is still attempting to fight Usopp and Chopper like everything is as it seems on the surface, which is to say that he is just their enemy, a zombie animal. So I'm really, really curious to find out how this is happening. So these creatures, these little animals, we have some really adorable ones and some really upsetting looking ones. There is a hippo who's like in a suit with a flared collar, and this hippo dude really reminded me of the design in Spider-Verse for Mr. Fisk. I don't know how many, if you haven't watched Into the Spider-Verse, the animated Spider-Man movie that came out like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, please do yourself the massive favor of watching that absolutely delightful movie. Gorgeous and very unique animation. A flawless script that is truly laugh out loud funny. And also a banger of a soundtrack. Very, very good soundtrack. But yeah, so we've got the hippo guy, we've got a sheep, we've got a amazing combo that works really well of a zebra and a kangaroo, which I love later when Usopp is about to fight it and he's like, a kangaroo zebra or a zebra kangaroo? What do you like better? I don't know why, but him just being like, how would you like me to refer to you? How do you identify? I love that. I love that so much. Thank you, Usopp. We have a little guy that looks like a raccoon with a star around one eye, like he's like from Kiss. A huge hulking, what looks like was originally a panda bear, but with this like tiny little, almost cow-like face sewn on the front. Just a whole variety. There's what appears to be the face of like a dog or a fox on the body of a animal that seems tigerish, but has the mane of a lion. And I have to wonder how Oda comes up with these. Like, does he just have a list of animal characteristics that are distinctive and he just like closes his eyes and just puts his pencil down and adds up whatever he clicks on? Like, it's just really wild. But yeah, so this whole thing, we have each of our friends needing to fight in their own way. Nami runs across the weird dog one. Usopp faces off for a little while with the zebra, just kangaroo, and eventually him and Nami wind up running off because Chopper says that he can hold these guys back. But there are kind of too many of them, and we get this a sort of hilarious chase scene where a bunch of the animals are pursuing Usopp and Nami up and down these stairs that seem to go in a weird circle. I don't know if that's like part of the magic or if it's just a goof, but they end up making themselves surrounded, if that makes sense. Like they end up with some behind them and some in front of them, and they have to leap off onto some pillars, which all results in eventually them leaping onto one that crumbles, and they drop down and wind up right with Chopper again. So the whole there's so much with these animal guys, but what it comes down to is the whole thing with Sanji and figuring out that there's something up with one of these guys, and Sanji is somehow connected to it. So going back to Luffy, Zorro, Robin, and Frankie, Zorro is now missing. And they didn't notice him vanish, but of course we saw that he picked up on the fact that there was a weird spider thing, so we can assume probably that's what got him. And I do love, there's a gag where there's this huge hulking figure that comes walking out of the dark, and it's in armor. And it turns out it's just Luffy, that he saw armor and put it on because of course you would. And Frankie is like, dude, what the fuck? How could you put armor on? What are you thinking? You scared the hell out of us. And Luffy is like, how could you not understand that I'm like fulfilling the dream of every dude wearing a suit of armor? You pass a suit of armor and you fucking put it on. Hello? To which Frankie actually apologizes and then says something about how even though he had to replace his heart, that's no replacement for a heart that's full of dreams. And we get him under the spotlight with his guitar again. And I forgot about this. And I didn't realize how much I missed Frankie singing a song for no reason. Realizing I've lost something so precious has blown a cold wind through the rusty cracks of my heart. I call this one Steel Cyborg Traveler Blues. And then the camera pans back over to their little pork friend who says, I think you've forgotten the situation here. Genuinely funny, you guys. This guy is like, what is this? Is this a bit? What are you doing? So this is when we get to a really weird, there's basically what looks like an arena, and there's a huge guy that's like a zombie inside of a suit of armor that blocks their way to even, I think, like getting into the arena itself, or maybe they have just gotten through the door. But this guy fights Frankie. It's a tough, like, Frankie takes him down, but it's still like he knows he was in a fight after. And the thing is, he takes a guy down, but this dude can't die, and he can't get knocked unconscious, and he doesn't experience pain. So he just stands up, and all of the other zombie generals wind up coming in. And it becomes very clear very quickly that while under ordinary circumstances, these three guys could take out all of those dudes, because they are zombified, they could just keep doing this all day. And Frankie is like, I mean, I can kick their asses, but keeping that up is really gonna wear us out. Like, I don't see how we get past these dudes. And I should mention too, like, a door slams behind them and locks them into this room. And it's a zombie door, which I don't even know what that means. But I do know that he's got a big angry face stretched over the wall, and it's really giving that character in like the first Doctor Who episode. Well, with the 9th Doctor, not the first ever. So we this whole I'm kind of jumping around here because there's so much going on, you guys, like genuinely. Oh, here we go. Here's another sighting of Perona, We have her in the room, I think, when what happens to Zorro happens. He gets pulled out. Oh, I said Moria wasn't in this episode, but of course this is Moria here that's grabbing him. Is it? No, maybe that's Dr. Hogback. No, I think that's Moria. He's got the sharp teeth of Hogback, but his lower half that we see isn't wearing the same outfit I don't think that Hogback was wearing. I don't know. But either way, there's something real weird with like a light that shines and sort of makes it obviously scares Zorro and makes him like pass out. And he gets tossed over onto the pile with Sanji. So the fight against all of these dudes, we eventually get a guy who clearly is like channeling Zorro's spirit, and he's wearing a shirt that says "Your Song" on it, which I really don't know what that's meant to be about, but it doesn't matter. I love the fact that he's like, I don't recognize you, and you are my sworn enemy, and Luffy is just like, I am, in a genuine sort of like, oh, that's interesting kind of way. And he says, I'm going to cut you into little pieces, and Luffy says, man, you are a lot like Zorro, only dumber. And then something comes at Luffy from behind, and he turns, and this, it's a weird moment. So he turns, things cut, and then you see like a backpack that comes sailing through what looks almost like a ventilation shaft. And I don't recall what this has to do with, but that's like the cut before we then go to Frankie. And Robin has like gotten up toward the ceiling. She swoops in on like a rope, swings and tells Frankie to grab on, and they start running, but like Luffy is still in there, which I thought was surprising that they don't attempt to, eventually they're like, where is he? And Frankie says something like he's really hard to see in this crowd with that armor on. But I thought it was weird that they begin running without checking on Luffy to begin with. Frankie tries to do like a fresh fire, and they all use water to just douse it, and it's no problem for them whatsoever. And the attack from Robin, they get out of this room, and they're on the bridge. Y'all, I don't know how the door is open. Did he go? Oh, okay. So Gus says, I think Luffy was wearing the backpack. They took him and left his backpack. He got snatched. Oh, that's what that meant. How did they get out of the room, though? Did they get past these two? Like, because they're back to outside, and I know Robin like swooped Frankie up, but I don't know. Did she just go to another entrance in a different spot? It's not super clear for me. It doesn't matter that much. I was just sort of wondering because I'm looking at them now being in a whole other spot, and I'm like, wait, I know that they did get out, but I don't remember how that happened, and I don't see it on the screen. It's in a clear way. So yeah, as they're running at this point, they notice that Luffy isn't there. And this is the moment where they hear his voice and they look up, and there's this rope that is carrying a huge, what do you call it? It's got a coffin wrapped in like spider silk, and it's moving across, and Luffy is yelling for them to let him out. And they begin to try and like charge into the building that Luffy's being taken into, and they get interrupted by a giant spider monkey. Y'all, this thing is a horror. This is a true nightmare. All of these animals and creatures are upsetting. Of course. This one, though, I could see being in an actual, for reals, scary horror movie. I hate this thing. It's of course the combo of the monkeyishness with the spiderness. So it's not only got 8 legs, but it also has fingers on its like front legs, and it's got a monkeyish face. And I'll say it, I don't like monkeys. I'm just saying I have, strong feelings about certain animals, and then there are animals that I can take or leave, and then there are animals that I really just don't like. I could take or leave pandas because they are just a drag. Pandas don't even want to still be alive anymore. They do the bare minimum, and they fail at that. Honestly, they just want to die out. It seems pretty clear to me. So screw pandas. I don't like them. Okay. Monkeys, I hate. They're like the combination of the worst parts of animals and people. They're able to do more and smart enough to do more, but not quite smart enough to like really restrain themselves in a way that is, you know what I mean? So they're not only out here just like shitting into their own hand and chucking it at you. Depending on like if you've got an ape, they will eat your face off and you could do nothing because they are so insanely strong. Very scary. Don't like it. So this guy, I love his little introduction where he's just like, you've heard of spider monkeys before, and I am one. He's just so proud to like be this new creature. So he drops down in front of them, blocks their way, and, monologues about how they have to get through him, and it's a whole villain moment. And then I'm trying to get to the spot here, you guys, because I'm running out of time. So I want to make sure that I talk about every moment that really matters. I feel like I've talked about Absalom and what's going on with him for the most part, that I don't really need to go any further into that. I almost forgot, you guys. Nami gets like picked up and carried off by Absalom. I thought I covered everything with him, but I forgot that she gets gripped up. He is invisible at first. So her friends are like, oh, you can fly. And then he turns visible again and they realize what's going on. And she starts to tell him that he's a sick voyeur who's treating her like a piece of meat. And she jabs him with the thing that Usopp made her and electrocutes him. And it is pretty great. I really did a fist pump at this scene. So she gets away from him and she's just like, keep running. Don't stop. We have got to get out of here. Absalom, of course, is extremely agitated that she managed to get away from him. And the fact that he was trying to attack Nami, that like penguin who was defending her, is still kind of in that mode. And Absalom has to throw him into a wall. This is the point where Lola turns up and she is also running after Nami. And Nami's like hearing for the first time that she considers herself to be Absalom's wife. So, she's like, basically, give me my husband back. So back to the monkeys, or the monkey, I guess. Let's see, it looks like that big web that caught the Sunny when we came here was your work, if I'm not mistaken. This is Frankie talking. And I had forgotten all about that web, and this monstrous monkey thing being the one that made that web, the fact that it can make a web, so gross. I hate this. I don't know why it's so much grosser. I think it's because he's a mammal, like he's got a mammal-like face. So the idea of him making spider silk, it just feels like it's gonna have to be a lot more body fluid-ish. Ugh. Gross. Anyway, he tells them that getting caught in that was the beginning of the end, and that they have been doomed from the start. There is a really weird moment where Robin says that his big ears must be good for collecting information, and he puts a hand to his ear and says, huh, what was that? I don't know if that's going to matter later, but it was a weird, extremely dumb joke. There are also a couple of moments when their friends are getting picked off that Robin is saying something like maybe they're being strangled so they can't call for help. And then later, I hope they still have all their limbs. And Frankie keeps yelling at her for being really depressing. And it made me think about what you guys have said, that Robin in the sub has a very dry sense of humor that is kind of a bit of, we've got a bit of nihilism in there, and that it doesn't come across in the dub. And I think that is probably a moment where the sub might be funnier than the dub. But anyway, so the two of them realize that they are completely surrounded. Robin calls this worst case scenario, and Frankie says, well, we need a last second miracle. Do you think I can handle it? And Robin says, I'd like to see you put on a good show for me, which I was surprised by, because it's not like she can't fight. She's sort of acting like you're just going to be the only one that does the thing. But it turns out what he intends to do is bust the bridge that they're standing on, that they have been cornered on. And the fucking spider monkey in the dub, you guys, flawless line delivery. You can't break the friggin' bridge, man. True indignation, and the friggin' makes it it's just perfect. He's like, we all agreed, I thought, on the rules here. This is well outside of what I thought, again, we were all operating on. Genuinely LOL'd at that moment. And he says that's cheating, and everybody begins to slide downward. And this is when Frankie's like, all right, so what do you think of my plan? And Robin's like, well, it's violent, so it's got that going for it. Everybody begins to just fall through the air down to the ground. I'm assuming that the spider monkey is going to save himself by using spider silk to catch himself. But we see Robin falling above Frankie. First of all, I absolutely must mention that as she's falling toward him, the shadows of the animation make it look like she's wearing a see-through dress, and that you can see her black underwear under the dress through it. And it's just the shadows, but it is a real optical illusion. She does Cien Fleur. And these are arms that all come out of her body, out of her back, and form into wings. It's so many arms. It's a really weird moment because you see very clearly that this is all arms. But then when she flaps the wings, it looks like feathers are coming off her, or petals or something. And I know that she has the flower petal thing. So it's just we just see that these wings are actually arms for a moment. And then the animation sort of puts that to the wayside, because I'm sure that's way too much detail to keep drawing over and over. So they pretty much just look like big fluffy wings from then on. And I loved that it turns out she can fly, but only for 5 seconds. And not only is it a short period of time, but obviously holding on to Frankie makes it extra difficult. So she's able to keep them aloft for just a second. And then Frankie uses his ability to grab onto something with that big chain hand thing he's got going on. And Robin leaps off of him to safety on the balcony, while Frankie has to drag himself up. And he seems really salty about the fact that she was using him as a stepping stone, but I don't really know what the other option was. Like, if she didn't do that, he'd have to haul her up, which I feel like she saved him some trouble, honestly. So I don't know. He asks for an apology and she just ignores it, and I feel like she is right to do so. So yeah, this is when he says, "You can help me up at least." And she gets a look on her face and he says, "What, did you see something?" And she's looking down. Oh, I forgot that we see what happens to the spider. He landed. He didn't save himself, but he is still fine because duh, he's undead. I completely forgot. And the spider monkey is real mad. He's basically like, "I'm gonna get you for this. You realize I'm a spider. Give me 2 seconds and I'll be right there. I'd start running if I were you." And there's something about the fact that he just like says that he can be there in 2 seconds that makes me think he can't be there in 2 seconds, but maybe I'm wrong. And then we hear laughter and we get pretty awesome, in my opinion, animation of what looks to be Brooke falling toward them at a great speed. I am just loving this animation. It's really reminiscent of camera work, you know. He is falling towards them, yelling at the top of his voice, and everybody is sort of like, "Do you see that? What is this?" And then Brooke says, "What do you call a flying skeleton?" "Airbone." And then it just says, "To be continued." Y'all don't know how bummed I was to have to press stop. I wanted so badly to watch the next episodes. I was just like, what an ending. Airbone. Worst joke I've ever heard. Most amazing entrance. And where has he been all this time? What has he been doing? Why is he here now? Like, that is a chef's kiss. Love it. Love it. All right. I've got to wrap up, but thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Thank you all so much for commissioning these episodes. What a light in my life this show has become. And I hope y'all are enjoying it as much as I have been enjoying it. Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.